Join us and help us continue to support the many talented people of our community. Learn how to get your business highlighted on La Crosse Local. Go to lacrosselocal.com and click on Advertise. Join us at the La Crosse Winter Roots Festival, Saturday, February 11th at the La Crosse Center. We'll celebrate Wisconsin favorites in music, cuisine, local beer, and spirits. Grab tickets at lacrosselocal.com. We talk with Brett Kawaguchi, aka DJ Brettley. We talk about early interest in music, influences growing up in the DJ scene, the path from bluegrass to punk and back, where people can follow along, and where to find this man at work at area bars and clubs. You can find more conversations, food reviews, live music, weekend picks, and events on our website, lacrosselocal.com. I'm Amy.
And I'm Brent.
And this is La Crosse Local.
My name is really Brett Kawaguchi, but I go by Brettley. I've gone by Brettley since I had to be about maybe 10 or 11. When my mom and dad started calling me by the nickname, I knew it was kind of done. Originally from Chicago, and that's where I kind of got into everything all one kind of shot. I got a job when I was 15 working at the Record Exchange in Chicago, and they had 3 different locations. And because they didn't have a permanent spot at any one location, I was kind of bounced around between all 3 stores. And that's where actually I kind of got my first introduction to DJing from Heather Robinson, who's one of the biggest house DJs in the world. And she used to work at that shop and was DJing at the Artful Dodger. So I think I might have snuck in with my fake ID once or twice to catch her. But that was something that, you know, like the music you play in the store. So when I'd work with her, I'd get to hear some of the stuff she was interested in. Then the Morris Avenue store was kind of in the heart of the ghetto of Rogers Park. So you had a mix of folks coming in. For example, you'd have legitimately all the folks looking for their rap coming in every Friday or every Tuesday, rather, when the new like Master P releases would get, or No Limit would get released. That was his label back then. The store's manager was a huge jazz buff. To this day, if it weren't for him, I wouldn't know heads or tails when it actually came to jazz. And so I would work there a day or two a week. And then the store I kind of really worked at the most and fell in love with was the Belmont location. And that was working with Wilbur. At the time, Wilbur was the main DJ at Club 950. And that was just down the street from the record shop. And it was one of the premier alternative dance clubs, so to speak. At that same time, Leroy, one of the video video jockey at Medusa's, he was in the Record Exchange every day of the week. And Medusa's was the big all ages dance club right down the street from where I worked. In addition to working at the Vic, that's where he worked as well. But we were a block away from either one of those places. And in the late 80s, early 90s, that was kind of the epitome of the Chicago punk scene, for example, because of Medusa's and the shows they put on there, in addition to being an all-ages dance club. Then you had a store called The Alley, which was right down the street from Medusa. And if you look The Alley up online, you'll see their presence is still there. And they were the punk and alternative store where you could, before there was a Hot Topic or anything like that, you had The Alley in Chicago. That's where I got my first leather jacket. That's where I got all of my accoutrement that went with my punk rock look, and so on and so forth. But that was kind of the heart of it all. And that was also in the heart of Boys Town in Chicago. So you have a mesh of all these different cultures and, you know, ideas and everything right there. But at a young age, I'm down there at 17, 18, and just taking it all in, working with 3 of the better DJs in Chicago at the time. And next thing I know, I'm hanging out at Medusa's every weekend night. And then Leroy one night's like, go ahead, have at it. And I'm like, oh, he's like, you know how to do this, I'll be back. And just took off. And then shows up right around the end of the night. And I'm like, oh, cool. That was pretty easy. Dumbfoundedly, I walked into a video jockey gig that lasted until, I want to say like summer of 1993, when Medusa's closed up shop in Chicago altogether. And that was kind of it. And so in that same stroke, when they kind of closed down, I started playing in bands again. And it wound me playing in punk bands, but how do you put it? It was fun and all, but I knew it wasn't where I really wanted to be, so to speak. Right before I turned 21 in 1994, I got offered a job working at Poets on Division Street in Chicago, which was kind of the big, like in La Crosse, Wisconsin, we have Third Street. Russian
Mm-hmm.
Division is the strip back in that era to go down and drink and party. And I'm like, yeah, why not? He's like, it's going to be a change in music for you. And so I had to do a quick brush up or education on the current 1990s.
Well, speaking of that, so when you say that, you had these different influences, were the different DJs, were they specifically doing different music, different sounds, different genres, or were they all down, somewhat of the same stream?
Very different. I mean, well, except for Wilbur and Leroy, they were very, in that era, the alternative scene. So you're playing Nine Inch Nails, Susie, The Cure, Sisters of Mercy, Nitzareb, and that genre of industrial alternative dance music. And then you had Heather, who's definitely a house DJ. And if you check out her stuff online, Heather Robinson or HR, she's on Twitch. But her stuff is very dance house oriented. But back in that era, it was the post 80s shutting of disco era when house was kind of dubbed house rather than disco any longer. And it was more the underground sound. So at that same time, we had like at the record shop, Frankie Knuckles, Jamie Principle, and a couple of those big icons from the Chicago house DJ era coming to shop at the store. So you have them all, and even cooler that era, being right around the corner from the Vic. We had members of Primus, Thurston from Sonic Youth used to come in, and you'd see these punk icons buying jazz, and you're like, oh, interesting. And then you start listening, go back and listen to a Sonic Youth record and be like, wow, you really did take those records seriously. In that era, the DJs I kind of followed were definitely like Heather, John Curley, Ralphie Rosario, and of all people, Jumpin' Julian Perez out of Chicago, who's now running for alderman or mayor, I think. I'm not quite sure. But Julian Perez was the mainstream house DJ, so to speak. And he was on B96 at that time, which kind of was back in the era when you listen to alternative, you shouldn't be listening to that stuff. You might get a little grief for it. But all of those came into play when I was learning or going to shows and checking people out. But then when I got down to Division Street, that was an entirely different beast because comparatively speaking, I can only say it's like DJing in downtown La Crosse at like Animal House or the La Crosse Beer House, where you can't pigeonhole and play a full-on, I'm doing this all night long. You have to keep rotating genres, or one group of people is going to get mad and leave. You might start, something that's going to be too heavy on the dance floor. So you have to keep rotating all night long in order to be successful in that.
So speaking of that, like, especially in La Crosse, and you kind of reference jazz, you reference some, not obscure, I know what you're talking about in terms of different punk related and alternative music. What makes for a good night musically for you downtown La Crosse? Because I feel like in some ways La Crosse is kind of not as informed on music, than Chicago or places like that.
It's a definite change. It truly is. And this is kind of funny. When I first moved to La Crosse in 2016 and was the GM of what was then Sawtooth Sam's and Coconut Joe's, I was the GM who helped close all that down and then reopen under Twisted Moose, which was what the owner wanted. He wanted something kitschy that was kind of one of those cute, very commercialized niche restaurants, so to speak, and then reopening Legends as the dance club. And what he said was, and this is direct out of both George and Dave's mouths, no matter what you think, La Crosse is about 10 years behind everyone else. I didn't really get it at first until I started seeing like attire, different slang that I was hearing in Chicago 5+ years prior. So as I started getting acclimated to it, it also played into the music. Yeah, you can get a little deep in certain genres, but other ones, if you go too far off on the spectrum while you're mixing a night, you lose interest almost immediately. So the only exception with that really in La Crosse is at Legends. where if you walk in there, you know you're walking into a straight up dance club. Everyone else kind of has that we're here for everyone feel. Like Animal House and La Crosse Beer House being the two I've been at the most in town in recent years, I compare it to playing a glorified wedding set where I'm mixing up everything I'm playing. Okay, I know the girls in back want to hear Shania. I know the guys over on one side of the bar want to hear Post Malone, which, okay, I know you're here. I'm going to play it. How do I work all that in collectively and not lose people? The one common denominator I found is don't play real dance music. You're a party DJ. You're there to make people sing, maybe dance and jump a little, similar to what I call the camaraderie of singing karaoke. When you sing a song like Sweet Caroline, you're all there to have a good time together. Like, even though you're with your group of friends, the entire bar is screaming along to the same song. Like when I was at Dooley's in Rochester, and this goes back right before we closed in 2019, I wasn't allowed to play the song Mo Bamba from Sheck West unless Jamal, the main bouncer, was sitting on the staircase looking down at me. He'd shine his light over me and catch my attention and just give me the head nod. That meant play it. He wanted to let the boys let off a little steam and have some fun on the dance floor with the people who were causing trouble. I would be notorious for putting on something really stupid after that. You can't fight when, like, Wannabe from the Spice Girls is on, Single Ladies, or my favorite is playing Minnie Riperton's Loving You, which if you drop that in the middle of a dance floor when people are fighting, they have to stop for a split second and think. It's that split seconds what give you your bouncers time to stop everything.
You know, it sounds like some ultimate curating going on. Do you do your own music at all? You know I looked you up and, it looks like you played bass in a number of bands. Do you kind of put stuff together on your own? Not
anymore. I really just don't have the time. And part of it is the DJ lot, the thing I'm doing now, moreover than anything else. I never expected to take over the way it has. It was honestly, I left Legends and the Twisted Moose, had a couple of DJ gigs offered to me right out the gate, including working weddings for Music Mix La Crosse. And I asked my daughter, who kind of has run of it all, I'm like, we have a couple of choices here. I can go find a real job. What do you want? I can be home more. You don't have to go to daycare because I'm not going to be able to afford to pay for it. So I'm going to pick you up after school every day. And this is her in pre-K and kindergarten. On the other hand, though, I could be flat broke. No guarantee on how this will turn out. And she's like, go for it. I worked for Music Mix La Crosse for a little while, and working for a wedding company turned me off so bad to how the back end of things, how they were done. And the only thing I compare it to is in The Wedding Singer, John Lovitz. And I'm like, if I'm going to do the wedding side of this all, that's everything I don't want to be about. And up until, honestly, late 2019, early 2020, I'd avoided getting involved with any companies who had offerings, covering gigs for companies, nothing. I just couldn't do it. And then Brent, my partner at Ever After, he's like, we should join up, and because he saw what I was doing, but knew my pricing was way off. And little bit by little bit through conversations, I finally joined the Ever After fold, which was the best thing I could have ever done for the wedding side of it all. Because he got me to some conferences. He got a business coach in front of our faces. And the business coach really has helped cultivate what I'm doing not only as a DJ, but training other DJs. But it led me down a path this last year that really changed my entire perspective on it.
Is there any big events that are coming up, or is it pretty much just these weekly pieces and these one-off, weddings and things like that? Do you have a show anybody can go to besides the bars, or what's happening with you?
Because being a single parent, and having my daughter a lot, it's made me make some determinations on what gigs I'm taking. So the Animal House is like kind of my favorite. It's a good gig. Lucky's in Winona. I'm there at least once a month, if not twice a month. And part and parcel, my target demographic for wedding is 23 to 30 something, maybe 33, 34. I'm almost 50 and DJing for people my own age. I'm just not there. I can do it, but you can definitely see there's a generational gap, so to speak. I'm more geared towards the other side of it all. But I also go to night school in Wausau, which is their only nightclub in that town, and Icon and Stevens Point, which they're both state-of-the-art, very high-end kind of nightclubs. VIP sections, bottle service, the whole 9 yards. So any Saturday I have that, that I can get out there or pair off with a Friday somewhere close to Green Bay, I'm out at Stadium View as fast as I can get there. Like I did Super Bowl the night before the Super Bowl last year. I did a couple of the games as well in 2020 or 2021. Yeah, 2020. So I've been out there a few times, which is one of my favorite gigs to take on. And a lot of the weddings I have in town, I cannot tell you how many nights I see couples I've DJ'd for or I have booked coming to Animal House. It's at least like there was one night, a wedding I did in 2018. The bride is my age. So it was her and her daughter and son who are in their 20s. She's like, we're coming out tonight. We'll be there. So it's a big kind of fun community, so to speak. And that's kind of more what I've been looking for in the gigs I take. So it's not just I'm going to some club, I'm some faceless DJ behind the booth. I kind of know everybody that's around me. It's a good feeling. As Zeke, the manager of Animal House, puts it, it's a vibe. And that's kind of what I want to like. I like putting out as a DJ. And yeah, I do make some remixes and record them, and I'll drop them in my sets because that's just fun. Like I've got like 20 songs I've played around with in the past couple of years. Thanks to our little break in COVID, I had a lot of free time on my hands.
So for people want to follow along, maybe come out and check out the tunes. What's the best avenue for them to go to follow along?
My Facebook page, facebook.com/DJ Brettley. And that's pretty much where I put all my content. Everything kind of feeds off of that page into the other avenues I need them to go to.
La Crosse Local Podcast is a production of River Travel Media. Do you have an interview idea you'd like to share with us? Message us on Facebook at La Crosse Local. Find out more about us at lacrosselocal.com, and you can subscribe to the La Crosse Local Podcast on your favorite podcast app. If you like us, rate us 5 stars. We appreciate it.